You are live.
Thank you. So good morning and welcome to the August 21, 2024 meeting of the Sports Wagering Application Review Commission, also known as SPARC. A proposed agenda and materials for today's meeting were distributed in advance of the meeting. So our first item of business is a motion to approve that agenda. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye. Those opposed.
Aye.
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 Very good. So at today's meeting, we'll review a diversity plan that was submitted by one of the awardees from our June meeting, Better BETR Maryland LLC, pursuant to the requirements in the addendum to our mobile sports wagering license applications. This awardee submitted its diversity plan within the allotted 30 days after license award, and staff has reviewed the plan to ensure that it's responsive to the requirements in the application addendum. As a reminder, the license application addendum calls for each awardee to agree to the following. The applicant affirms it will make a good faith effort to meet the diversity objectives outlined in its plan, and that any changes to its diversity plan must be approved by the MLGCC. The applicant agrees to report diversity metrics to the extent available in the form and frequency required by the MLGCC, and to provide any other information the Commission considers appropriate regarding ownership, investment, management, employment, and contracting opportunities by diverse participants and groups. And the applicant agrees that its diversity plan and the information reported above may be made available to the public. So I've asked Lottery Executive James Butler to briefly present this diversity plan for our discussion and consideration for approval. James.
Good morning, Commissioners. We have, as the Chair mentioned, one diversity plan to review today. The plan was provided to you prior to today's work meeting. As in the past, I will give you a brief overview of the plan and then present the plan to you for review and your consideration. As a reminder, SWORC awarded the mobile sports wagering license under consideration today to Better Maryland LLC at its last meeting on June 26. This awardee, Better Maryland LLC, is a wholly owned subsidiary of Better Holdings, Inc., which was organized on August 4th, 2022, and was formerly known as Instabet. As part of its ownership, Better selected Bet on Gaming's Holdings LLC, BOGH, which is an entity owned by Dennis Cotto, who is an African-American and a Latino businessman, and Jessica Cotto, who is a Latino businesswoman, as the entity to hold the 5% indirect ownership interest in Better. BOGH has a target goal of annually contributing six-figure donations to national historically Black colleges and universities. Better in Maryland LLC, with the assistance of its parent corporation, Better Holdings, Inc., will conduct all sports wagering operations for this Maryland license. Better operates sports wagering in two other states, Ohio, Virginia, and has received a temporary license in Indiana. Better Maryland LLC's ownership diversity is 47% minority. From an employee standpoint, 37.5% of the employees identify as minority and 19.5% identify as women. As part of its diversity plan, Better seeks to partner with various diversity-focused organizations such as Women in Sports and Event, better known as WISE, and other similarly situated organizations. Better Maryland submitted its diversity plan consisting of seven pages for your review. Commissioners, I present the diversity plan for your consideration. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, James. So do I have a motion to determine that the Better Maryland LLC diversity plan is in compliance with the requirements detailed in Section B of our sports wagering application addendum?
So moved.
Second.
Very good. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? None. That motion's approved. And second, I'm looking for a motion to post the approved diversity plan on the SWORC website so that it may be made available to the public.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Very good. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion's approved. So now, since it's been about a year and a half since SWORC approved its first major competitive licenses, at which time there were some expected results included in the materials we shared with the public. I've asked our team to briefly bring us up to date as to how sports wagering is going in Maryland. So for that, we have a slide deck that Kim Kopp of the Taft Law Firm has prepared for us, and now I'd call upon her to just walk us through that, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hello, commissioners. Good morning. It's good to see you. Oh, and look at that, right on cue. Nice. Thank you for starting the PowerPoint for me. As the chairman just mentioned, we've just come upon the closing of Maryland's fiscal year 24. For those who have fiscal year dyslexia like myself, that means it was from July 1st of 2023 to June 30th of 2024. You always get confused by that, but nonetheless. So we thought it would be time, since it just ended, and it's different than our fiscal year 23, because in fiscal year 24, the state had full 12-month period of operations of the mobile and retail wagering. As the chairman mentioned, we didn't start the mobile wagering until midway through fiscal year 23. So with that, we thought we'd go through and give a quick overview. If we can go to the next slide. This slide will just show a reminder of where we are or where we came from. This is Maryland sports wagering law, as we know, had two types of licenses: the facility licenses and the mobile licenses. The facility licenses are just like they sound: in-person locations or retail wagering establishments. The law authorized 17 that were designated in the law to get a license. And those folks were the usual cast of characters: the 6 casinos, the sports teams, racetracks, OTBs, the large bingo facilities, and the fairgrounds. In addition, the law authorized SWARC to award up to 30 additional sports wagering facility licenses. SWARC received applications for 6 of those licenses. And we also were allowed by the law to issue up to 60 mobile sports wagering licenses, and SWARC received 21 applications for those licenses. So if we go to the next slide, we'll first start with our retail licenses or our facility operations. And in fiscal year 24, there were 13 facility licensees that operated. Not all of them operated, not all 13 operated the full 12-month period. There were some that came in later after the year start, and then of course at the end of the year some had exited. But during the fiscal year, there are 13 that reported revenues and made reports to the state. 10 were designated licensees. They were all the designated except those 7 that are listed here, and 3 of them were our competitive licensees that operated. So if we go to the next slide, this will show this, and just so everyone's clear, these are the same numbers that are reported by Maryland Lottery and Gaming, that they report on their website: monthly revenues. This is obviously a snapshot or taking one of their monthly revenues that showed the full year. That was the June of 24 numbers. So if people are trying to match those up, this should be the same. Of course, I did some rounding because looking at dense numbers makes my brain hurt. But this will show what the retail sports wagering facilities did. The important numbers, I guess, that to look at here would be the handle was 180.6 million. Handle, to remind everybody, is the amount wagered on sports at those facilities. And then I skip down, we can go through each of the lines if that prizes awarded is obviously just what they paid out in winning. Promotional play is, of course, what they played in promotions to get people in the door. There are other deductions that could be for bets that didn't go through or that were canceled or for some other reasons. And then that next important column here, which I normally skip to, is the taxable win. That was around $15 million, 14.9 mil. Why that number is important is because that's what the sports wagering taxes are calculated off of. Maryland has a tax rate of 15%. So in the next column, you'll see the contributions to the state from retail wagering were $2.24 million. And then the last one, expired prizes, is reported. It's about almost nearly $1 million. That amount gets deposited into the problem gambling fund. So that's why it's listed here as kind of something to see. If we can go to the next slide, it'll show again the key takeaways. I went through the first 4 bullet points already to tell you what we saw from the retail facilities. What also was somewhat interesting were the top 5 facilities you'll see listed at the bottom of the slide. MGM National Harbor, which is run by BetMGM, their sports book, took 31.75% of those wagers, followed by Live Casino at 23.5%. And then you'll see it goes down from there at Ocean Downs Casino, gosh, say that quickly, is 10.3%. Horseshoe Casino around nearly 10, and then Hollywood Casino at 6.26. So that's showing, if you added that together, that's approximately 81% of the retail wagers were placed at those 5 facilities. A lot of that's by location and by population. Obviously, you can't move locations. So the big story, of course, is the mobile, which I'm sure we're anxious to get to. So if we can go to the next slide, we'll show mobile operations. Again, SWARC received 21 applications for the 60 licenses. We awarded the first mobiles in our first meeting in November. It was November of 2022. And then 7 of those mobile licensees became operational about a week later. That was a magnificent feat by Maryland Lottery and Gaming to let those come online. To date, SWARC has considered 17 mobile licensees of the 21 that we received applications for. I would note 2 withdrew their applications prior to our consideration, so they will not come to us. And one, it's not listed here, but there was one that after we approved withdrew from sports wagering. But in fiscal year 24, there were 13 mobile licensees that operated kind of, and I say that again because there were probably really 12 that were significant. One came in, I believe, like the last day of the month or right at the beginning of the new fiscal year. You'll see them listed on the next slide. If we could flip there. These are those that operated in fiscal year 24. You'll see the last one listed there because these are listed alphabetically. I mirrored what you'll see in the reports that are put out monthly. Veterans Services, really, it says 000. It was such a small number, it rounded out, and that's because they just began operations. So the other 12 operated for a significant chunk of the fiscal year. And the big numbers that you'll see here, if we go back down to handle at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, you'll see $5.1 billion of handle was wagered through these mobile applications, significantly dwarfing what we saw in retail. And you'll see the taxable win generated off of that $5.1 billion wagered was $387 million, which led to tax payments to the state of $58.07 million. And just as a reminder, that $58 million gets deposited into the blueprint for Maryland's future fund, which of course backs education in the state. So this is obviously significant wagering. It does, as the chairman alluded to in one of our earlier presentations back in 2022, we put out some projections, and this is on course and beating those projections. If we can go to the next slide, this will show you the combined wagering by combining both the retail and the mobile, which was handle of 5.3 billion. The taxable win of 402 million, and the total contributions to the Blueprint for Maryland's Future Fund of $60.3 million. If we go one more slide, the next slide will just show you, we've gone through those key takeaways from the mobile, but also what's significant is nearly 97% of all sports wagering in the state of Maryland took place through mobile apps based off of our iPhones, probably, that we're all sitting there using. This matches the national trend. This is not unusual. I think in most states that have both retail and a robust mobile probably follow this. That's between 90 and 95, 96, 97% of it happening on our iPhones or tablets. The top 5 takeaways or top 5 by handle of that means amount wagered is also listed on this slide. And it's pretty staggering, I think. When you look at this, it's Live Casino, which their mobile book is operated by FanDuel, which I think we've all heard of, is 45%, captured 45% of those of the handle wagered in Maryland. DraftKings at 32.3%. Just combining those top 2 is 77% of the mobile market that we saw in Maryland. BetMGM comes in at 3rd of 7.8%, followed by Hollywood Casino, which is now ESPN Bet at around 5%, and the Caesars Sportsbook, which was 4.5% of handle was wagered. The landscape for both our mobile and retail, just to set expectations for the upcoming year, is continuing to change. Some operators that operated in 24 are not continuing in 25, and the most notable are Riverboat on the Potomac ceased wagering in February of 2024, and that was because their sportsbook operator was acquired by another sportsbook operator. And of course, they then closed that book. And also Long Shots, they were operated by a company called Betfred, and Betfred has exited the market, and those shut down just at the end of the fiscal year. We also have new players coming. Veterans Services just entered the market, and I believe Bally's is also entering the market this year in fiscal year 2025. So the landscape is continuing to change. That's not unusual. We're seeing some in the national market consolidation, or folks leaving the business of maybe unexpected returns, or because some of the behemoths have such significant market share. I think we've got one final slide. Obviously, if there are questions, we can take them. This is somewhat interesting to see. So what do people wager on? Glad to see table tennis is not listed like it was in COVID times and other jurisdictions. So what a takeaway here is, obviously the parlay and combination bets are most popular, and that's not unusual. That's a national trend. But by sport, you'll see in Maryland basketball, professional basketball leads at 18%, and that might be by the sheer number of games, of course. And then you'll see baseball at 9.8%. Professional football is then at also listed there at 9%. If you combine that with college football, because sometimes people jam the football together, it would be 12.5%. So that was kind of just an interesting overview of what we've seen. And again, we did this so that these match the numbers that are reported monthly on the Maryland Lottery and Gaming's website. Obviously, if there are questions, we can certainly take them. But we just wanted to present the overview as it was the first full 12 months of a fiscal year that we had both retail and mobile wagering.
So are there any comments or questions by the members of the commission? To me, it's useful. Go ahead.
I have a question. Those facility folks that have ceased to have gaming because of a change in their provider, do we know if we will see them come back through with an application for a new provider?
I can tell you my instinct. My instinct is we like to see that happen. I suspect that they're looking for folks to come in to be operators to continue operations. I don't know that personally. I haven't spoken to the folks, but I presume that that's what they're looking to do, and that could likely occur.
And they'd have to go through the process again.
Well, I think they'd be changing their operator license. And I believe technically SWARC, we approved the original licensee. So we approved Long Shots to have a license.
Right.
So I would think it would require only an approval. The new operator would require approval by Maryland Lottery. But if I've obviously misstated that, there are folks here probably much more educated on it than I am. But that's how I think it would occur. I don't know if they come back, or they wouldn't, in my mind, come back to SWARC, but they would certainly have to go back through and be approved by Maryland Lottery as suitable.
Yep, that's correct, Kim.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on anyone's toes if I wasn't supposed to answer.
No, not a problem. Yes, the Riverboat folks are looking for a new operator along with some other of the retail establishments.
Thank you.
Well, the data certainly, indicates the concentration in the 2 or 3 largest mobile operators as far as sports wagering in Maryland, which was pretty much what we all were led to expect a few years ago when we embarked on this adventure. And this further suggests to me that the likelihood of somebody putting up the fees to start fresh today is not a high likelihood. So the universe of licensees with whom SWARC is likely to deal, I think, is already before us. So all this is useful information, I think, for us. And I thank Kim and the team for putting this together for us. Are there any other thoughts or comments on this material? Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I don't see a need for us to go into closed session today unless someone else on the commission feels otherwise. Hearing no such interest. Our next SWARC meeting is scheduled for September 18th at 9 a.m. if there's any business for us to conduct. So please hold a spot on your calendars. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for joining, and